right, now I'd like to introduce our witnesses. Our first witness is Lieutenant Ryan Graves. He's the Executive Director of Americans for Safe Aerospace. Lieutenant Graves is also a former U.S. Navy F-18 pilot with his own UAP experience. The next witness, David Grusch, is a former senior intelligence officer with the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and was a senior technical advisor for UAP issues. And finally, retired Navy Commander David Fravor, squadron leader who worked as a naval aviator for 18 years. Mr. Fravor has his own UAP experience, known as the TikTok event. I look forward to hearing from all three of you today. Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise their right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that all the witnesses answered in the affirmative. You may be seated. We appreciate you all being here today and look forward to your testimony. I'll remind the witnesses that we have read your written statements and they will appear in full in the hearing record.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to Alien Addict. It is Friday and it is Grusch. It's Grusch Day, let's face it. Because that's the guy. That's the guy, people. That's the one to watch. Stu, my lad.
Good evening.
How the devil are you?
It's good.
It's me and V tonight. Lee might be dropping in. He's got some errands. Dave's like doing some sort of like UFO hunting thing tonight. I don't know what it is.
He's MIA.
Crazy. People, thank you so much for your support on Rockfin this week. Much appreciated. Get yourself over there and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, you can become a member. And while Tic Tacs are still in fashion, and they certainly are now that Fravor's bringing them back to life, I've got some Tic Tacs for you. You can become a Patreon. Whatever. Or just like the video, share it out, all that jazz. Love you all. Stu.
Hello.
You've not been feeling well today, mate.
Nah, I've been feeling a bit rough, a bit run down.
But you're here.
I'm here.
You're here.
I'm here. I wasn't going to miss this. Too important.
What a week! I mean,
it's been a bizarre one, isn't it?
I've had chance to sit back and so I rang Lee the Wednesday when this dropped before we was going to do the Rockfin show, and I was like, I think we should cancel. I think we need to do the YouTube show. This is too important. And he's like, well, no, I think we need to settle. We need to see what everybody else is saying and just copy it. Get a lay of the land. You know, I want to hear what Goofon's saying. I want to hear what Lou Reviews is saying. I want to hear what Stephen Cambion's saying. Me and you have just both watched Stephen Greenstreet and Mick West interview. I find it. I don't know what people want, and that I said to you when you joined about 20 minutes ago. I said I don't want to hear your views. Don't blow your load. I want it to be natural. I, me personally, with this, I mean this thumbnail. I actually mean it. It's not just clickbait. That I am quite proud that I managed to get that man that size on that thumbnail.
It's good
But I
money.
actually mean it. To me, it's massive. And I know what people. I've invited Scott Brown. Scott Brown's a ufologist. He's probably going to say completely opposite to what we're going to say with this. And it's a nothing, but I don't know. I've not spoke to Scott about it.
Mm.
To me, this is huge because I don't
I think
think.
so. I think it is. I mean,
Go on, let's hear it.
I think that people were, if you were expecting like all the receipts, the doors open, every manufacturer that's potentially got crashed retrieval craft and everything just to be wide open in this initial hearing, you're barking up a gum tree. That was never going to happen. What this was about was an initial hearing to get what Grusch had said in the interview with Ross Coulthard and get it on the record and under oath. And now that that's happened, that means that he could potentially be held liable criminally if it's all bullshit. So we've got that in the bag. And same goes for Fravor, same goes for Graves. I was a bit hesitant about Ryan Graves testifying because I've never really kind of liked, not the right word, but I've never really kind of got what he's all about compared to
We've seen
what.
some radar footage. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, whereas Fravor, I understand a bit more what he's about, and he's pretty much a straight shooter. I mean, he hasn't really. I mean, he's embellished the story maybe slightly, but for the most part, it's exactly the same as how he's told it across the board. So he's sound, and I don't know what folk were expecting, but I fully expected for Grush to do what he did, which is when he was asked questions that he just could not answer, he was deferring the Congress people to the skiff and saying, "We'll talk
Mhm.
about it in closed doors." So he's going to give up the information.
Skiff did get mentioned. I think
Oh,
skiff was the most used word in that session, that
yeah.
hearing.
No, definitely. I mean, I like the Congress people who were on the committee. A lot of them I haven't even seen before. So I don't know much about them. And I like the Congress men and women they invited to ask questions, like Matt Gaetz and Alexandria Ocasio Cortez. And one thing I would also say is this is very much a bipartisan thing. There's no Republican versus Democrat, conservative values versus liberal values on this one. They all seem to be right down the middle. They want to know what's going on because they definitely seem to. There's entities, people in the Pentagon and in the Department of Defense are pushing back quite heavily and saying, "Feck off, you're not getting access." So that in itself is very telling. And if they bring the full might of Congress down on them, then that could be interesting down the line. Because at the end of the day, Congress controls the purse strings. They're the ones that decide whether these guys get paid or not. So they're not to be pissed off.
I did want to see. Obviously, everybody wanted to hear something different, and I think a lot of people's. I mean, even Mick West, his argument was we didn't hear anything new. We've already heard this, but
But we haven't heard it under oath. There is a difference. You
yeah.
know,
So my argument with that is it's not for the UFO guys.
no.
It's for my mum and dad. It's for my next door neighbors.
This certainly got
It's
more,
for the teachers at my kids'
yeah.
school. That's who it's for.
Apart from News Nation has been going heavy on the UFO topic for the last month since they did the interview, and prior to that, they were kind of building up to that interview. I've got my thoughts on that, which we can keep for later. But there was an awful lot more mainstream. You had CNN, you had Fox, you had MSNBC, you had a lot of mainstream. The BBC covered it. Al Jazeera had a mention of it.
I mean that alone, for anybody who's from the US watching this, the BBC covered this. That does not happen.
They covered it everywhere as well. It wasn't just on their website. It was on the main bulletin. They had it on their website, and they also had it on the radio. It was on Radio 2 and Radio 4 in the bulletins. That never happens, you know?
That's what I think people are missing. That's the thing. Because I honestly don't... I know what Lou says. I know what Stephen says. You know, it's all a massive grift. It is a big grift. Lou was on, what was it, last week or week before? And I said, you can't honestly think that it is a massive grift. And he paused for a second, and I thought he was going to say, maybe it's not. But he says, no, it is. And I'll tell you why. You know,
What kind of grift does he think it is? Because I can't remember what he said about it.
I'd have to bring the clip up. I'll try and find it.
Right. Because I think it's possibly a grift, but not in the way you and I would think. And we're not talking grift as in Stephen Greer grift, snake oilsman grift. I think.
Oh God, I've got to bring that clip up from Greer that you sent me on News Nation. That was hilarious.
Yeah. That's brilliant. I think his face looks well bent out of shape in that. But anyway, I think that it's become very apparent to Congress that they're chucking billions at the Department of Defense. And obviously, every year they're audited, and every year they fail the audit. And we all know the Donald Rumsfeld clip from way back in the day before 9/11, where he announced that they had basically had $2.3 trillion dollars just missing. They just don't know what they did with it. I think it's pretty clear they know where it went. They're just not willing to tell anybody. I'm not saying it all went into UFO, UAP stuff, but I think Congress is now realizing that if they can take control of the UAP narrative and potentially work out who's doing what, when, and where, that they'll be able to control the money better.
Yeah.
That's what it's about for them. So it is a grift in the sense that there is money involved, but not as in the sense of they're each, making money separately. I mean, the big problem, the large manufacturers like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Boeing get outed. That was something that actually happened. It got mentioned at the hearing as a company, which no other company got mentioned. I thought that was interesting. But these companies literally pay lobbyists millions of dollars per year, and they contribute to congressmen and senators' campaigns and chuck money at them, thousands and thousands and thousands, and try and buy them off. The problem they've got is the people in that room are not, they've got their own, there tends to be the pharmaceutical industry, but they've got their own way of making money when it comes to donations. So they've got big problems with the people that are potentially in that room, like some Matt Gaetz, in terms of being able to buy him off. I mean, I think Matt Gaetz is a sleazy ass, but he doesn't seem to be suffering fools gladly when it comes to this.
It's before we're gonna. I'm gonna bring that News Nation clip up.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So they had Avi Loeb on, Stephen Greer, and what's his name, the UFO guy. Shit with the UFO guys.
Oh God, I can't even think.
Greer,
Loeb.
Lou hates him. I forgot his fucking name.
Watched every moment of this today. Sean, I actually want to start with you because you were an eyewitness to part of the Tic Tac incident that was described today. What is your reaction to the hearing today?
I was quite emotional watching the hearing today. It's been a very long battle to get this information out, to get it treated with respect and with dignity. A great deal of the information that was useful to most people is classified, and it required the pilots and other eyewitnesses to come forward. So I'm very heartened by what happened today. We have truly crossed the Rubicon. This is a very historic event.
Is there a moment in particular that made you particularly emotional today?
It was towards the end of one of the gentleman's speeches where I believe it was Representative Burchett, where he acknowledged all of the people who have worked behind the scenes over the years to keep this alive and to not allow it to be obfuscated to the point where it was completely disregarded. I represent a great deal of those people, and I work with them every day. And you may hear it in my voice right now. We have truly achieved something revolutionary today, and I look forward to the results.
Yeah, I really feel that from you. And Dr. Greer, what stood out most to you today?
This is just like before this, like Grusch. Let's remember, Grusch basically said, "I don't know the guy." do you remember that?
Yeah.
So literally, Grusch completely refused to have ever worked with Greer, and Greer.
I think they've spoken once, but what Greer says and what Grusch says are two entirely different stories. And I must admit, I'm more inclined to believe Grusch than
I
Greer.
actually feel a little bit for Greer here, because it's like I kind of feel like he should have had a seat there.
Do you not think this kind of
Corbell bet him to it?
Do you not think this kind of blows everything that he's ever done in terms of talking about briefing presidents, going all the way back to, I think I joked the other night, Lincoln, but Reagan or whatever, or Bush Senior. I think it was actually Clinton was the first president.
Funny you should say that. I think he drops that in here.
Does he? Right. Okay. Funny that. Go for it.
Well, I think it's gratifying. You know, I've been briefing people like the CIA director for Bill Clinton since 1993, and been recommending hearings like this, open hearings. I will say there are a few points that need to be explored. One is Mr. Grusch actually can speak about anything he found out about these projects, because we can prove in a court of law that they've been run illegally. In other words, senior people in the White House, Pentagon, Congress, Senate Intelligence Committees that I've met with have been denied access. So therefore, the National Security Act is vitiated in terms of secrecy, so long as those programs are being run illegally, and they are being run illegally. I can say that with some direct authority. And secondly, I think it's very important for people to understand there are two types of UAPs. There are the man-made ones, no question. My uncle was lifetime Northrop Grumman, worked on the lunar lander module. I think we have to understand that a significant part of the phenomenon is actually clandestine but illegally managed, reverse engineered advanced technologies, as they're called. A significant part of the phenomenon is actually clandestine but illegally managed human reverse engineered advanced technologies, as they're called, ATs. And some are non-human intelligence. There's no question. So I think this needs to begin to be looked at more critically in terms of what part of the phenomenon falls under which category.
I mean, it's fascinating, and what a can of worms. We could be talking about this for the rest of the show. I do want to get to Professor Loeb. What is your reaction to the hearing today?
Pause it a wee second.
Well, I think what's most important is the...
Okay, this is just I digress an aside. Do you remember the original Super Mario Brothers movie with Bob Hoskins?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
The greatest.
I know. Do you remember the Goombas? The big sort of muscly things?
Oh, my God. Stephen Greer looks like a Goomba.
Yeah.
That's a thumbnail.
Exactly what he reminds me of.
That's a thumbnail right there. None of you fuckers can do it, because you ain't got the fucking talent. I can do it.
That's definitely got to make him a Goomba from now on.
Oh,
brilliant.
My God.
Right, go for it. But let's see what Avi.
I do like it. Listen, I've got no hate for Greer at all. I've got a little bit of a soft spot. I felt a little bit bad. He looked like he looked a little bit.
He looks like he chucked his rattle out the pram. He's pissed off as can be. Well, judging by his background, he's in his house. That does look like the
Hey, look,
this-
yeah, I've been in that room. Yeah, it's definitely his house.
It's definitely his house. So he obviously never. I mean, he's not that far away from
Briefed me.
Washington. Was he? He's Maryland, isn't he, or Virginia? I can't remember. But he's not that far away as the crow flies from Washington D.C. But he obviously wasn't there, so he didn't even try to get in the room. So yeah, he looks butthurt. It has to be said. Let's see what Avi's saying to it.
The evidence, the information, the factual information that we heard. You can think of yourself as a member of a jury, learning about what the witnesses are talking about and trying to decide whether it's credible and what your verdict might be. To me, the existence of materials and potentially objects that were retrieved by the US government is of greatest significance, because if it's true, this information should be shared with scientists. The government is not a scientific organization. The government should not hide the existence of neighbors in our cosmic environment. This is a subject that scientists should be engaged in, and in fact, I am. The sky is not classified, the oceans are not classified. This has nothing to do with national security, because anything coming from...
Yeah. We get the gist. I want to say something, because I know what's probably going to happen after this. People are going to wonder why I was so impressed with, because I was impressed with when I was just listening to it when I was driving. And I didn't expect that. I don't know what I expected. Even when I heard who's going to be on, I just said it's going to be the same old shit. But then when you kind of get the whole under oath thing, unless that means jack shit these days, and Dave kind of said, I think on the Rockfin show, actually, I don't know what they probably couldn't do. They probably wouldn't even do that much, but I don't know. I'm not from America.
Yeah, but I think the threat of losing your
Credibility.
Well, the credentials of top secret, and also like blackballing yourself from the Pentagon and the Defense Department, that's enough of a threat to not piss about.
Because that's the thing. How much money is it? And this is the guy. So Grusch is the one that stands out.
Yeah, I
He's
tell you
the
what.
w-
I'll tell you what he said that I found interesting, and it changed the narrative ever so slightly, which was when he was on the News Nation interview. I just had this vision in my head of him, having sneaky little conversations with people in the corridors and getting whispered, information and stuff like that. But what was presented in the hearings was he's gone out and investigated and interviewed these people, and multiple times, some of them. So it's not just a case of it's hearsay. He's investigated it. He's gone out and done the legwork and found the people, found the factories, got all the information together. It's taken him 4 years, and he's obviously built up to the point where he felt that he had to whistleblow it because he wasn't getting the right kind of feedback, and he was also getting punished. So that's
What-
interesting.
It is. What did you think to Grusch the first time round to what you think now, or do you still stand by your original feelings with Grusch?
I'm more impressed now than I was with the News Nation interview, because I tell you why that is. I had a bit of a bee in my bonnet about Ross Coulthard, which I don't have now because I've dug into his background a lot more. There was a lot of rumors flying around about his credibility, whether he'd been fired from news stations or anything like that. And
Yeah,
I
because
had a-
everybody's kind of. I've heard Lou say that, Cambion say that about.
yeah, no, if you actually really dig into
So
his,
let's get so what is the background with the News Nation with 60 Minutes?
well, supposedly 60 Minutes and the other one, which was the 7 News Network, he was effectively fired from them, and it's just not true. He's still doing stuff for both channels, but just on a freelance basis. He obviously saw an opportunity to um, chase down the UAP topic, and obviously he wrote a book about it in plain sight, and that's where he's come from. But he's been doing stuff still. I mean, he's back in Australia right now in Sydney, but he's been doing stuff for News Nation, not News Nation, sorry. Well, they've been doing stuff for them as well, but 60 Minutes and for 7 News Network. So his relationship with them seems to be pretty sound. So whatever rumor got splashed around about he was, a bad egg, bad seed, not a very good journalist. He actually, to me, comes across as the opposite now. He's very, very credible. And that then made the interview a little bit more credible once I'd done that research. But Grusch, he was a bit flippant in the interview. Do you not think like his answers were a bit kind of almost jokey? Whereas in the hearing, he had the suit on, there was a bit of gravitas about him. He was very formal and he wasn't flippant in his answers in any way, shape, or form. So I think the jokiness that's obviously part of his personality, he buried for the sake of the hearings and put across, his game face effectively.
Do you not ever think that Grusch, because we spoke about this on Rockfin, but if we're going to talk ghost conspiracies, when you get people like Doty, for instance,
Richard Doty.
Yeah. Do you not think Grusch could be like the next Doty? But on a bigger scale.
Doesn't come across like that because, like, when you listen to Richard Doty say what he's been saying in that, he smacks of being, a CIA spook and a psyop, out to disinform the world. Whereas Grusch is like, it's them versus us. It's the Jedi versus the Sith. It's good versus evil. It's very much us against them with Grusch.
There's just something about him. I can't put my finger on it. He's just too cool with it all.
I think if you get to his level and the amount of like, what do you call those?
Responsibility.
No, it's gone out of my head entirely. When you get wired up and truth detector type thing, polygraph.
Right.
He's done multiple polygraphs on a regular basis. He's had psych evaluations on a regular basis. To get the clearances that he's got to, he's got to be cool, and he's in the thick of it.
So there's my issue right
he is
there.
He is literally the one person that knows where the bodies are, to put it politely.
So that's my issue. He looks like a guy that would get a job done. He looks like a guy that you could depend on to keep quiet. He looks like a guy that would be the dog's dick when it comes to whatever he's doing. But it's just, I asked the question, why does he love the American public that much that he is telling us basically nothing? He's just telling us that we have crashed things with non-human in them, bodies. It doesn't, none of it kind of like, I can't weigh it up because I can't weigh it why he's doing it. Other than the love of his country and people. Now I get that, but he looks like somebody who would be working for his country and keeping that shit quiet because of the other countries that make, because he's basically saying that the American the Americans have that sort of tech. Now, if that's the bit that I can't weigh up, if you're the guy, I'm really not articulating this very well, but I don't articulate anything well. He's the guy that I would trust in to protect a secret. He looks like that guy. He looks like
But I
that
think
guy that
that's
would
what
do a great job.
at the end of the day, that's what he's doing right now. I think you have to look upon Grusch as he's the guide, and he's guiding us up the mountain, and he's the one that's going to introduce the different elements and the different people who are going to then spill the secrets. I mean, there's going to be more whistleblowers. The people, what this is all about is building confidence so that the other people that he's interviewed can come out and say their bit, whether that's in a public hearing or whether that's just completely in closed door sessions. I think once Congress finds out where the bodies are hidden, literally, and where the crafts are, it all gets basically blown wide open, because then these companies, regardless of like let's just take the Skunk Works for example, they are probably trying to divest themselves of any alien craft they've got. I'm sure Ross Coulthard said there's alien craft there that's so bloody big they put a building over it, so it's not easily moved.
He did say that, yeah.
So I think are they going to hold on to this
people
stuff?
went crazy on Google Earth.
Yeah. Are they going to hold on to this stuff and basically just own it and see what comes out of it and see how they can spin it and make money from it? Or are they going to try and palm this stuff off to other companies? I mean, Boeing's already been mentioned. So, I mean, there's, folk can start looking to all the different Boeing plants that are around the US and abroad and stuff like that to potentially where stuff's being kept. I'm pretty sure Boeing's got a hangar at Area 51. But no, you have to look at Grusch as a guide. Grusch is the dungeon master, if you will. He's the one that's controlling the game. He's not the one that's going to spill the secrets, but he's got enough secrets to spill to get Congress digging. And Congress has never dug like this before. And the very fact that Sean Kirkpatrick from the anomalous, I can never get the name, basically the UFO department.
Arrow. It's just called
Arrow, right. He's fighting tooth and nail against this. They are totally against this. Now, I don't know whether that's down to the fact of they just do not have the teeth to go looking themselves. They've not got enough clearances. Grusch seems to have way more clearance than them in terms of the top secret compartmentalized stuff. But they're fighting against it. There's other elements within the Pentagon are fighting against it. When Matt Gaetz and two of his colleagues went out to one of the Air Force bases to chase up a UAP incident that happened, they were initially given, the bum's rush to push out the door and told to feck off. And then when they then sort of reminded them who pays the bills and who, writes the checks for them, I think they got to see one pilot out of asking to see a whole crew, and Matt Gaetz got to see one radar display, and they got to see one image, which is obviously enough to whet their appetite, but it's not what they were there for,
What about let's go back to Ryan Graves. What do you think to that guy?
More credible now than he was before. Did he? I mean, I must have gone out the room or something. I missed a bit of his testimony, but somebody said he talked a little bit about a large red UAP. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, he did.
Right. Hadn't heard that before. Would like to know a little bit more.
I briefly heard that. Yeah, the size of a football field is always the size of a fucking football field.
That's how they measure things over there, though. It's like the easiest measurement for them.
I was thinking, could he be wrong about what he these things some that people are reporting, these cubes with there's the circle around it, the cubes within a sphere. Can't get my words out today.
Stephen Greenstreet was saying that potentially they are radar reflectors.
Yeah.
And they're balloons, effectively.
I want to see it. Do you know? Is there an actual image of a real one rather than a plan?
See if I can find one for you.
But I'll bring the clip up. This is a great interview with Mick West, Stephen Greenstreet's interview, New York Post. I've never seen this before.
Humans have made clear, transparent orbs with cubes inside of them. These are radar reflectors, radar jammers, or whatever. And there's a cube within a sphere. So humans have made something that looks like that. It goes into the air. It has a process. And then you learn that after the Chinese spy balloon, there was further reporting that there were smaller balloons, had been for a while, smaller Chinese balloons off the East Coast in this exact area that were radar jamming balloons.
Yeah, I've got pictures. Do you want me to share?
Yeah, bring them up, mate. So you've got the real, because those were just
yeah, they're
drawings.
They're a bit more pathetic looking than you would think. Right, hold on. Present.
But how would pilots see these and not know what these are?
I don't know. They are.
You know what I mean? That's scary that they don't.
Okay. There we go. Get my cursor down there. It's only 120 quid. But that's effectively what they're talking about. Like, there's your diagram that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think them 120 quid ones would be the ones that they're using.
And that's effectively. No, actually, I mean, it could well be because all they're doing is creating a radar return.
It could be anybody's.
Let's see what this one's all about.
Jennifer says, "Stinks to high heaven, all of it." Well, I do pray every now and again, Jennifer. Thank you so much for the super chat there. I'm praying that it's not going to be the beginning of Project Bluebeam. Don't know if I can say that on YouTube. Yeah, so those things exist.
Yeah. They are real. But I don't think, like,
I mean, if you saw that in a plane,
even if it's like that and it's solid inside a Mylar balloon or whatever, I don't think a pilot's going to misinterpret what that is.
As well, at what speed the moving at this thing must have been to actually capture it properly.
I mean, this is the thing. I mean, like, you know, an F-18 Super Hornet cruising speed's about 500-600 miles an hour. You know, so they're traveling at a hell of a speed, plus the object itself will be getting blown by the wind. So if it is just a balloon, depending on which way one's going one direction and one's going the other direction, it could look really fast, it blowing away, you know. So
thanks, Jim.
I don't know.
I honestly, with that though, it kind of knocked me for six because I thought I've never heard of this before. This is the first time I've seen this, that they had those things. I've never heard anybody debunk it like that and show what they are.
This is the kind of thing that they should be. This is one thing that Fravor said quite a lot at the hearing, which is there's a lot of stuff that they've got classified that's overclassified. It should be declassified because you could certainly blur out and obscure any proprietary technologies that are on the screen around the edge of the heads-up display or anything like that, and just focusing on the object itself. The thing that these displays have is even after the fact, they can, like, it's a bit like using TikTok. You can clear the display and move things out the way so you can see better, and then bring it back again to bring all the elements back in.
Yeah.
It's a bit like that. Even after the fact, when this has been recorded, they can move the text and the lettering and the 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 position of the plane or the pod or whatever it is. They can get all that stuff out the way, and you can just focus on the image. So, or the video. Why aren't they doing that? You know,
Speaking of Fravor, I want to bring this bit up. Sorry, Stu, carry on.
No, I was just going to say, they're not doing themselves any favors by keeping us all dangling by a thread all the time. They could be releasing a lot more stuff, but whether that puts fuel to the fire, I don't know. We've got to remember this isn't for us.
Probably does. It's not.
Said 10 seconds. Her testimony is that it lasted 10 seconds, and she scoffs at the idea of it being 5 minutes, and that's
Pause it a second to debunk that. She was a rookie pilot. She was also the second plane. She was given the role of basically sitting back and higher up out of the way. And I think when she talks about the 8 to 10 seconds, she talks about literally the last 8 to 10 seconds where she got to see the craft before it shot off and went to the cap point or whatever they call it, cap point. He's talking about the 5 minutes of interaction that he had with it, which is diving down, spotting it coming up at him, the two of them doing a bit of a pirouette, him cutting across the circle, and then the thing disappearing.
So when he says, Captain, it's back at your cap point, you're not going to believe this, it's back at your cap point. Where's that whistleblower? That's what I want.
What's his name? Is that not Kevin Day that said that to him?
I don't think it was Kevin Day.
I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure he was the radar operator.
No, I don't think he's
or one of his team.
But I mean, why is Kevin Day not there? You know,
Kevin Day is good. I mean, that is one guy that's got PTSD. I mean, he's got problems.
He looks like he's got a few issues, bless him.
Yeah.
But if you got, forget Grusch, forget Ryan Graves for now. If you just got everybody, Dietrich, Fravor. By the way, it was so funny listening to that hearing because they could not, one of them could get Grusch's name right or Fravor's.
I know they kept calling him Grusch. But even the
journalists, one of them calling Gush at one point.
I just don't get folk. But you know, learn to say guy's name for God's sake. But Graves got mispronounced as Gaves. Grusch got Gush or Grush or Grush, and Fravor was Favor.
Favor, yeah,
yeah, Favor.
Mr. Favor. I was dying for them to correct them, but they never did.
That's the thing. They know their position, you know.
But can you imagine if you got like literally everybody who witnessed the Tic Tac, the radar people, everybody
in a room? That'd be a hearing and a half. I don't think. I mean, I know Alex Dietrich and Dave Fravor have appeared together. I know Ryan Graves has appeared separately with Fravor and with Alex Dietrich. I don't think all three of them have been together. Could be wrong. There may be an interview on YouTube somewhere where all three of them are together. But
I mean, Graves essentially he kind of like he speaks to loads of like pilots and people that have had all these encounters, and maybe in a few years time he will pull it off, and we'll get like a load of pilots all confessing to what they've seen.
It still
I
seems to be in the military a total career ender to be talking about UFOs or UAPs.
so I will back that up. So here in the UK, so my mate, he fixes I don't know what they are. Is it the Euro in the UK?
They've got the Eurofighter and the
Yeah.
F-35 Lightning.
Yeah. So at Lossiemouth, he
At
fixes.
Lossiemouth, it will be the Eurofighter.
Yeah, he fixes those.
Yeah.
And I asked him if he speaks to any of the pilots, and he says, "Well, every now and again, yeah." I says, "Do you reckon?" He's been on the channel. We've had a few beers on the channel. We've done it. You'll have seen him before on the channel. I said, "Do you reckon we could get a pilot on?" You don't have to discuss UFOs. We can just discuss some stuff. He says, "Not a chance. It's absolutely not a chance. You're not going to get a pilot on a UFO channel."
I've got 2 family members that work in quite high up positions, air traffic control out at Prestwick at Atlantic House, and I've asked them both about UFOs, UAPs, and they basically didn't speak to me again. I haven't spoken to them since. It's so detrimental.
Were you drunk when you asked them?
No, stone cold sober at a family barbecue, and sober there. But
Was it like one of them awkward moments, like where you just kind of like, okay?
it was a long time ago now, but yeah, no, I haven't really spoken to them ever since that conversation. Whereas my great uncle Bill, who also worked at air traffic control when I was a kid, he was forever telling me stories about UFOs and shit that he'd seen on the radar. It was just different generation back then. I mean, he came of a generation whereby if he was doing his 4 hours, managing the planes and all that kind of stuff, he would probably go through about 30 cigarettes in that time because they were allowed to smoke at their desks back then. So yeah, he would tell you everything.
Those are the good old days.
Yeah, those were the good old days. But no, my cousin and his wife, who both have supervisory roles out there, would not speak of it at all. Even though they have seen shit. I know they've seen shit. They can't say what they've seen. Because the thing is, they cover Macrahanish. And if any of you have ever followed Professor Simon and all that stuff that he does with Macrahanish, it's probably something we should do a show on actually at some point.
Yeah.
But there's a lot has gone on out there towards the Atlantic, and they cover that whole spread right the way across to, I think it's Newfoundland or whatever. Before the Yanks pick it up.
I kind of get where Graves is coming from. Like, if you can't speak about this, and there is an issue. If they're putting threat, because I hate the whole aerial threat thing, but if they're talking about it just as a threat, as in we may crash into the motherfucker, and that's the issue.
I think they're talking about that, but other people are not. Like if you're talking about like Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo, they're like, their threat is they're coming to get us. They're going to take over the world. That's their end of things. I mean, it's interesting that Chris Mellon wasn't even in the audience. I mean, he's pulling strings left, right, and center.
We've got the audience there on the front. Well, I've probably put Grusch a little bit too big. It's probably covering up a couple, but we got the audience there.
I mean, we've got Sean Ryan taking a selfie. We mentioned the 2 people with Corbell and Knapp just now.
I think Sean Ryan's just taking a picture of how big. He didn't realize Grusch was that big.
Will we talk about who's sitting?
Yeah, bring it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's news to me, man. I don't know who these people are.
Right. The guy who's to our left as we're viewing it, but Knapp's right. In between the girl with the brown hair and George Knapp is James
holding his little diary.
holding his little diary or whatever it is. That's James Clapper. James Clapper has been the head of every three-letter organization that is intelligence based than you can possibly get. DIA, CIA. He was in the Obama administration. What the fuck was he doing there? That is interesting. And not only that, you can just see him out the corner of Grush's ear next to Corbell. You've got Charles McCulloch. Charles McCulloch was the Inspector General for the intelligence community back, about 10 years ago. Maybe even less than that he was still in the role. And again, is that like one of Grush's contacts? Is Clapper one of the contacts? But the fact that those two are there, which I thought was quite funny, squeezing the crap out of George Knapp. George Knapp did not look comfy in that hearing at all. His shoulders were well pressed together, whereas Corbell's splaying it for the world.
Yeah,
posing.
he's got some leg room. That's
Yeah,
Corbell,
let it all hang out. But no, that was to me amazing, because obviously Corbell's talking to McCulloch. Knapp is kind of listening into that. You then get Clapper. Don't know who the girl is with the brown hair, or the girl with sort of sandy blonde hair further along, and I don't know who the guy is with the purple tie. The guy who's to Sean Ryan's left, our camera right, that's one of Sean Ryan's people. And I mean, you should have seen the queue for the public gallery, which is basically the sort of last row, second last row, and I think possibly where Sean Ryan's sitting. That's
that guy above Corbell's head, really, with the blonde hair, really picked the wrong shirt for the occasion.
he did, didn't he?
Or maybe the right shirt.
But like, I'll guarantee you, some of these people will be lobbyists for the military-industrial complex, because they're not going to be staffers for any of the congressmen or people, because they were all like basically behind all the seating for the Congress people. So it's not going to be any staffers or anything there, but it's an interesting audience, and the fact that those two guys were there, I'd love to know why they were there.
What would you say to people like that are saying this is a nothing burger?
It's not a nothing burger though.
Yeah, but how would you break that down? Really simple, just to say
the hearing. Why. It's an initial hearing before the vacation break, before the Congress goes on their vacation for the summer. It's an initial hearing to get initial testimony on the record under oath that then gets the ball rolling. Because when all these Congress people go back to their districts and have a bit of a holiday, but also work in their districts for over the summer period and that, and press the flesh and raise money and whatever else they're going to do, the staffers back at Congress are the ones that are going to be investigating this stuff and digging into it. And the more senior Congress people are the ones that will probably be able to dig the furthest. It just depends on what classification that they've got. Because I think if Matt Gaetz, for example, has got top secret compartmentalized, secrecy classifications, like Title 10 or Title 50 or whatever, then his staff's got that as well, because he has to be able to communicate and talk about that with his staff. So they have the same clearances, or at least some of them do. Because there's no point, my voice is going, excuse me. There's no point in these people having staff and not being able to communicate with them what they've seen. They've got to be able to talk to them about it. So they'll all be working hard over the summer period. So when the hearings come back around again in the autumn, then things are going to get interesting. And at that point, I think that's when you're going to see other whistleblowers, because it won't be Grusch trying to encourage these people to blow their whistles. It will be Congress. And Congress, even though it's pretty toothless, they do have subpoena power. And they can also, like, they've pretty much set it up now that NDAs don't matter. People can speak freely and not have any retribution against them. So that's how I would put it. Not that it's not a nothing burger. It's not exciting either. I
No,
mean, not
absolutely.
we didn't get Skinny Bob on the floor of Congress. Do you know what I mean? Nothing like that. You know, whether that'll even ever happen, I don't know. But I do think we'll see an awful lot more Tic Tac type video stuff, flare stuff. I think they'll crack some of that open. I think you'll see more
Do you
stills.
think we're going to get more from Grusch, or do you think that's going to be kind of it now?
Unless
I don't know why I kept on my finger. He's the guy that interests me the most out of all of these.
Unless he gets some kind of immunity entirely. I mean, he's out of. I don't know what he's doing in the private sector or whatever. Hold on, sorry, mind blowing. Do you think what Gates said is what he heard?
Let's bring
is-
some of the comments up.
is
Yeah,
this-
why not?
in the skiff? Yeah, hold on, bring mind blowings up. You got it. Now, did you mean did he hear it in the skiff? Probably, because he was as vague as he needed to be without giving too much away, but letting away some information away. Congress
They didn't get a skiff authorized, as far as I know.
No, I think this is previously.
Right.
This has been maybe talked about in the skiff. Yeah, I mean that's another thing. Why can't they get a skiff authorized? Who the fuck, decides who uses the skiffs, which are obviously
Well, that's what
Bruschette.
Yeah. I have to be careful how I say his name. It really does sound like people say bird shit when they do say his name. Bruschette.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said he couldn't get a skiff. He said he tried, couldn't get one. I like Bruschette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that blows that blows my mind, because there's plenty of them in Congress. I mean, you can quite clearly go onto the Congress website, and you can tell which ones are the skiffs, because they're the ones that are not marked up. So, yeah, I don't like Matt Gaetz as a Congress person. I have to say that. I don't like what he does as a Republican. I don't like just the way he goes on for most of the time. I don't like the personal attacks he does. But that being said, he seems to have done quite a few bipartisan things of late. And he's keeping his nose a lot cleaner than he was before, because he was under investigation for trafficking a minor across state lines.
Sorry, who was?
Matt Gaetz.
Right.
He was getting called a pedo for a while there, but it all seems to have blown over and blown away.
Like it does.
But he's kept his nose clean. So it's interesting to what he's got to say. There's other Congress people like Congresswoman Mace, I think it was. She was asking about the human entities, bodies, that kind of thing. What did Grusch call them again? Humanoid.
Let's bring the clip up. Let me find it. I think I know what it is. I must have watched this thing now about.
I've watched the hearings 3 times now.
Yeah, I think I'm about on the third run. Which is kind of sad. I know. You kind of got it in this game.
Yeah. Biologics. That's it. Aragami Sensei. Thank you. The other thing that was mentioned, but it was kind of scanned over a little bit, was the fact of talking about the potential of these biologics or whatever um, being interdimensional rather than extraterrestrial.
Yeah, people always get confused with that.
And that kind of is of interest to me. Like I like if anyone in the chat has dipped into any kind of quantum physics, quantum theory, string theory documentaries in the past 10 years, then the whole interdimensionality, multiverse type scenario. So you can see my color better there with the blue tie.
Would like Project Blue Book, yes, but currently I don't speak for the United States government.
Thank you. I have a few questions for Mr. Graves. What
Grusch.
percentage of UAP sightings, in your belief, go unreported by our
Oh, no,
pilots?
great, Ryan Graves.
It's
It's an
sorry.
approximation based off of my personal experience speaking with a number of pilots, but I would estimate we're somewhere near 5% reporting perhaps.
So like 95% basically don't report seeing UAPs.
That's just my personal estimate.
In the incident off Virginia Beach, do you believe the Navy took the danger to your aircraft seriously after it was reported?
Absolutely.
A few questions for Mr. Fravor. As an expert naval aviator, have you
Fravor.
ever seen an object that looked and moved like the Tic Tac UAP?
No,
Did the Tic Tac UAP move in such a way that defied the laws of physics?
the way we understand them, yes.
That was
Many
a brilliant
dismiss
answer.
UAP reports as classified weapons testing by our own government, but in your experience as a pilot, does our government typically test advanced weapon systems right next to multi-million-dollar jets without informing our pilots?
No, we have test ranges for that.
It took over 15 years for your encounter with the Tic Tac to be declassified. Do you feel there was a good reason to prevent lawmakers from having access to this footage?
No, I just think it was ignored when it happened and it just sat somewhere in a file, never got reported.
In a drawer. It happens a lot up here. Shocker. Mr. Grusch, a couple of questions for you too, sir, this morning. What percentage of UAPs do you feel are adequately investigated by the U.S. government, of the 5% that are reported?
I can only speak for my personal leadership over at NGA. I tried to look at every report that came through that I could triage. So,
Do you believe that officials at the highest levels of our national security apparatus have unlawfully withheld information from Congress and subverted our oversight authority?
there are certain elected leaders that had more information that I'm not sure what they've shared with certain Gang of Eight members or et cetera, but certainly I would not be surprised.
Okay. You've stated that the government is in possession of potentially non-human spacecraft. Based on your experience and extensive conversations with experts, do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
Gotcha. Okay, so, and you may.
Did anybody yet consider, what's that,
Infraterrestrials. I'm assuming they're meaning like aliens that have come from like the bottom of the ocean inside the planet, that kind of thing. I'm assuming that's what that is.
Lee's all about that.
I'm kind of about that as well.
They're already here.
Yeah, I wouldn't sort of think that. We should probably people probably don't know what the Gang of Eight is. The Gang of Eight is the leaders of both Republican and Democratic parties, the ranking minority members and majority members of both the Senate and the House committees for intelligence, and I think also the speakers involved and the chief of staff covers the executive branch, and they get briefed by the executive branch, which is the presidential end of things, as to what's going on, because obviously the president can get information before Congress, in effect, through the chiefs of staff. So that's what the kind of Gang of Eight is.
Right.
So it's an
I don't know what that
intelligence related thing. I've only ever seen it once on back in the day. The West Wing referenced the Gang of Eight because they talked about the Posse Comitatus Act, which is to do with whether a military action could be taken on U.S. soil against its citizens.
Do you think we could if we potentially if we got, I don't know, let's just say next year we get another 4 brand new whistleblowers that we've never seen before.
I think you could get them by autumn. I think you could get at least 3 by the autumn, the way this is heading.
Completely new ones.
Completely new ones.
Do you think it'll matter? You think, or do you think? Because the weird thing that I find with this, and when I first started Alien Addict, wasn't called that back then, but it was still an alien UFO channel, whatever it was. My intentions with it was that I fucking loved the subject, and I believed in aliens potentially visiting Earth. I was pretty much convinced that they were. I think the same reason is why every other UFO channel's got into this to begin with. And everybody, I would say the majority of UFO channels, including myself, has changed massively. But do you think because
as in we're all more jaded and skeptical?
Yeah. What would it take for us to believe? Because I'm at the stage now when if I go out tomorrow and I'm looking up and it's a Will Smith moment from Independence Day and it's a giant fucking spaceship, I'm like, that's a fucking hologram. Stop panicking, wife. You know, I'm at that stage now. Like,
I don't know about Project Bluebeam.
Okay, no, that was kind of a joke.
I know, but like
ish. Go watch Rockfin. Ish.
Yeah.
A little bit of a joke, but not. But I think I'm talking for like bit of goof on, bit of mainly Stephen Cambion, Lou Reviews, Mick West.
I tell you what's come up interesting of
What
late.
will it take? What will it take for them to see? What do they need to actually? Do they need to? Because will they believe it if they see it? Because I don't know if people will these days.
I think
I will struggle to believe anything now.
There's 2 things going on here. First of all, yes, there's the whole uncanny valley. Are we seeing, CGI in front of us? Because I mean that's the thing now. Like, good quality CGI can get superimposed across live footage if they've got the right equipment set up.
Oh yeah,
So,
new UFO in a year's one. Even now, you will not be able to trust anything because of AI. AI will be able to make the best fucking UFO videos you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, it's scary, the stuff that I've been doing, just playing about with it. But the other thing is, I'm almost positive now that since probably Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, all the way back in 68, 69, they've slowly been leaking tidbits of information to the likes of Spielberg and to Roland Emmerich, and the stuff that we're seeing in movies and in TV shows that is for our entertainment is actually partially maybe got a grain of truth in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. So everybody said that about Spielberg and Close Encounters, and
Yeah, especially that. I mean, I rewatched that movie just a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, holy shit, when you actually kind of read between the lines, for the technology of the day and how they would actually photograph the ships and use the models and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's what they're talking about now. You know, spheres with cubes inside and all that kind of stuff, and um, spheres that break off into smaller spheres and stuff like that. So I don't know. But yeah, would we believe it? I don't know. Well, another thing that's interesting to me is like there's the community, the UFO community. There's three UFO communities. There's the YouTube UFO community. There's then the Twitter UFO community, which partly bleeds into YouTube.
Mhm.
And then now there's a lot of really good TikTok UFO channels popping up.
yeah,
And some, I
Alien
mean,
Addict's one of them.
I know, but there's, I mean, Paranormal Chick, and there's a couple of other ones as well that have popped up on my feed of late that I've now subscribed to. Some of these people have got like 500,000 followers on TikTok, and they're pulling out footage that I've never seen before.
But yeah, that's the thing. Where they're pulling it from, and what is it?
I would assume they're pulling it from YouTube.
I mean, we looked at one today and then found out it was SpaceX.
Yeah, that was easily debunked. Sorry. That was Starlink getting launched.
Yeah, but I mean, if I had known that they just launched a fucking doofer up in the air, because I didn't know, I'm like, oh, that's that. I was like, Lee sent it, and I'm like, whoa, that's fucking amazing. Like, what the fuck is that?
If it wasn't for the fact that I'm now used to seeing that
Starlinks,
that the effect that the rockets have in the atmosphere when they're actually like
that way in front of it.
Yeah, I've seen that quite a few times. I've never seen it at that angle before. That did put a different spin on it, but I knew instantly what it was before he even dug into
That's
any
that
comments.
spirally thing that you see if you look at it head on into it.
Yeah, it's cool. It really is cool. But I mean, this is the other thing. Like, if we have got alien spacecraft that we've had for years and years and years, if Bob non-human, if Bob Lazar's to be believed that some of the craft, because I've obviously been editing the Bob Lazar documentary together, and I've had to actually like change my tack with it because I've gone from Bob's full of shit to discovering that Bob might not be full of shit, but not exactly telling the truth, to a lot of the stuff that Bob says potentially could be true. But did he just
It's
get
funny
that?
you should say that because Lee fucking loves Corbell, and I mean he fucking loves him. He's gonna get a picture of him framed on the wall, and he's like he did say to me the other day. He said, "What if Bob's telling the truth? You know, what if we're just not thinking right, and he's the perfect guy because he's the guy that no fucker would ever believe because he didn't work at these places, or they you know, he's got this weird fucking wacky record of having a brothel and all that jazz. What if he's the perfect person for the job?"
I think, without giving too much away of the documentary, which is coming out soon, folks. I know I said July, but it's going to be August.
Just let's not put a date on it, Stu.
No, not putting a date on it, but
Say what it is.
it'll be soon. I know that. Right. Anyway, but
But you're not ripping Bob's arsehole in half, basically.
no, because
You
I
can't.
mean, like there is an issue with his education, which is whether he went to MIT or Caltech. I think he took classes at Caltech. I don't think he ever went to MIT. But I watched for the first time the other day Richard Dolan on Kirk Jumungle's Theory of Everything podcast.
Great show.
And Dolan basically said, listen, I used to vet people's CVs for them and like polish them up, make them look good. Everybody in the 80s and the early 90s lied about their education and
Yeah.
said, yeah. So, and
My dad lied to get in the Merchant Navy.
yeah, I know a lot of people that have lied. I have embellished my education before, exaggerated it slightly. Everybody did it at our age. It's just part and parcel of what was expected. But obviously now you just cannot do it because you'll get found out in a heartbeat on the internet. It's easily chased down, so you just can't embellish anything. But back then it was the norm. So I'm thinking now, well, I don't think he went to MIT. I don't think he went to Caltech. He went to the places that he went, but that's not to say he didn't not work at Area 51.
S4 to be precise.
Well, I don't think S4 existed. I think that's one of the places he's potentially embellished. I don't think S4 was a thing. I
It's
think
on
it was
Google Earth.
no. I mean, yeah, the Papoose Lake's on Google Earth and all that kind of stuff, but I don't think there's people have been down that way. There's no infrastructure. There's no roads leading up to it. There's nothing a bus could drive along. Whereas, what if you actually look at what Bob's referring to? Um, it's Area 51. So it is. So I think if you walked to anywhere, it would have been Area 51 or up at Indian Springs. So I think the S4 is a bit of a red herring, personally.
Purposely a red herring.
Yeah, I think he's put it in there. That's the embellishment side of the story. That him, Gene Huff, and John Lear kind of worked out together for whatever reason.
Can you imagine if you got Bob Lazar in front of Congress?
I don't think you will.
You
because-
imagine it. You imagine if Bob Lazar agreed to go in front of. Well, I'm sure I've still got it here somewhere. There we go. Yeah, I have. If you got Bob Lazar in front of Weinstein,
See, I think you get more chance to get him in front of Congress because Congress
the
no res-
Weinstein.
than Weinstein because Weinstein's too smart for Bob. Weinstein, quite frankly, would run rings round Bob. Bob's not dumb. Bob's got a very high IQ. Bob knows a lot of stuff about a lot of things in his wheelhouse, but there's lots of things that he doesn't know. And Weinstein, I think, would mop the floor with him. But Congress, they are of very different educational levels. You get some Congress people who are pretty smart, and you get some Congress people who are as dumb as fuck and don't know what they're talking about.
Well, they can't get people's names right.
Yeah.
For a start.
So I don't know. But whether Bob would do that or not, I mean, if he was subpoenaed and forced to go and do it, he probably would do it. But I don't think he'll do it voluntarily.
What do you think to the argument? I think Lou Reviews made about there not being many people there at the hearing.
How many people did they want? What are you talking about? Like the seating arrangement?
Yeah, there just weren't many people there.
No, I mean in terms
Actual
of the
peop-
Congress people.
Yes.
Yeah, that room that they're in is for different sized hearings. Some committees are larger than others. There's some of the bigger committees have way more Congress people on them. So it's not that they were, and apart as well as that, some of the Congress people like Matt Gaetz and AOC, they were like guests of the committee. They weren't on the committee, so they literally came, asked their questions, and just went. They had other things to do because I mean, Matt Gaetz was on the Hunter Biden investigation committee later on that day, same outfit and everything. So he had places to go and people to see, kind of thing. So the fact that there were empty seats didn't phase me because the seats that needed to be filled were filled. They had a full committee group there from that committee. That's all they need. Everyone else after that was just guest Congress people who'd been invited along to ask a question. I wasn't expecting Matt Gaetz and I wasn't expecting AOC to come along because
Do you think we're going to get another one of these next year?
I think it'll happen. I think you'll get a couple of closed sessions in September, and I think we might see another public hearing October, November this year.
Really?
Yeah, I think it'll be that soon because they'll have done enough digging by that point. And the thing is, I don't know at what point Grusch would be able to give them access to the information that they want, but they, if he gets that information to those people, the likes of, you know, what manufacturers are involved, what craft they potentially got, who the people are, where the bodies are, all that kind of stuff. If they get a hold of that, they'll not be long in knocking on doors. So yeah, I could see it being this time. Whether something seriously like earth breaking from our perspective happens, I don't think so. I think it will be, to use everybody's phrase, a nothing burger until next year. Until we get other whistleblowers coming out and speaking publicly, that'll be when things start to get really interesting. And then it might be a snowball effect. You might get the one person that knows where everything is as well, but is willing to speak up, like a Snowden type scenario.
Grush is the one. He's the one for me. He's
Yeah.
he's the one that holds my intrigue more than any of the others.
Who is it? Hold on. Uber Barbie put Richard Doty. Doty even mentions S4. Yeah, but I wouldn't trust what Richard Doty says because he is literally out to obscure, obscure the conversation.
Yeah, but he came clean about that.
I'm not sure about S4 because there's no infrastructure there, and I've seen really good quality photos of Papoose Lake now, from above, from like
Have we got them
1600
for the
feet.
documentary?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That pilot that accessed flew over Area 51 on Christmas Day a few years ago. He took some great photos and he made them available. So that's what makes me think, if there is a base like what Bob described in Papoose Lake, then it literally is the best.
Well, he said it was.
underground.
Didn't he? Did he not say that it was like within the rock, the mountain, whatever?
Yeah, but it's got to be the best camouflage job ever, because even the road leading up to it,
That I don't think that would be hard.
I don't know.
If you've a little bit of
In the documentary, I'm
paper
leaving it
mache.
a little bit more vague, but we are leaning on the side of, I don't think S4 was a thing. I think S4 could have been a sub area of Area 51, sub level 4. That's what I think S4 is. That's where I'm.
maybe S4 is there just to fucking completely knock us off the scent.
Well, it's doing its job.
It
So it
definitely is.
But I mean, even the likes of how Bob Lazar describes when they got caught out and he got hauled over the coals the following day up at Indian Springs. I've come across a John Lear documentary I showed you guys,
Yeah.
that just puts way
I've
more
not seen that
information
before.
about it down in timelines and what actually happened that night. And Lazar comes across as a big baby, to be honest with you. He ran. So he did. He's carpered. And then he got caught later on.
I think I would.
I think I would as well, but if the way Lazar paints it out is as if they were standing there and they got caught out. Nah, they bolted. They bolted, so they did. But anyway, that's for the documentary. Plenty more to be talking about that. But no, it's not a nothing burger. I think it was a reasonable hearing. It wasn't anything utterly exciting.
I think it's the most interesting thing we've had in
Yeah.
the last fucking since we first got the fucking Tic Tac footage.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I'm not even that bothered with the Tic Tac footage
No,
now.
I'm not, but it was a big deal for the UFO community.
Absolutely.
I always looked at that thing and went, I can't see why it's so fantastic, because I didn't understand it to go.
I still don't think like some Mick West, with all that he has researched into that, has taken into account what Fravor saw with his own eyes.
Yeah, that is a massive issue for me, because I said this. I showed. I think it was about a year or so ago. I showed my dad the Fravor interview, and I said people are saying this guy's full of shit, and he says, "Are they a pilot?" No, is the answer to that. So I get Mick. I have a lot of respect for Mick West. He's
As do I. No, he's not a dafty.
But I think when it's a bit. I would like to get. I think that would be the best interview. Forget all the other players. Get Mick West and get Fravor in a room or on a Skype, whatever. Skype, people don't even do that these days.
Zoom.
Or StreamYard.
Yeah.
And get a conversation going. And I'd want Fravor to say, with all due respect, Mick, I'm a fucking pilot. I know what I saw.
He is literally the closest thing you will get to being Maverick out of Top Gun. He's the real deal.
If you look at his record, and this is the thing. Me and Lee say that far too much. This is the thing. And I want people in the chat to think about this. I want whoever's watching this after the show, hit the thumbs up. You've got to ask yourself this question as much as you fucking love the debunkers, and I do. I used to debunk myself. I like it. Every now and again, my nipples get that little bit harder, and I want to debunk third face moon.
Mind blowing said, laugh out loud, Iceman.
Yeah.
But sums.
Fravor's background stands up. Has he been in he's done some acting stuff before? Yes. Kind of. But he's still a fucking pilot.
I mean, I loved it in the hearing. Like one of the Congress people said, what did your boss say about it? And he was like, I was the boss. I was the commander of the, the buck stopped with me.
It's a big fucking deal. So it's either one or two things. I don't think it's about getting a bit of fucking money. It's either that absolutely happened and he's speaking up about it, or that guy works for them. And I'm being deadly serious there. that is either what it's about. It's either it's about the fucking money, or all you've just witnessed is leading up to something that we can only speak about on Rockfin. Check the Rockfin show out from this week. You'll understand what I was talking about.
I'll need to watch that because I haven't watched it yet.
Basically, we talked a bit of Blue, we talked a bit
Yeah.
of Beam,
I kind of figured that, but
nipples as well. There are lots of nipples in it.
but like Fravor, the thing I quite like about Fravor though is he clearly is not into UFOs. It's not as if he's continued to do interviews and go on Cambian show, go on an hour show, going on, Goof on or anything like that, done the rounds. And he's not the only sort of closest thing he's done to a conference is the one that Corbell did in McMinnville, the festival thing.
Mhm.
He did, a Q&A for that. But I think that was more to do with the fact that he was quite keen to talk to Bob Lazar, and that was his opportunity to talk with Bob. And
Who
that's the
Fravor talk with Bob?
yeah, that's the other thing that helps give Bob credibility to a certain extent, is the fact that Fravor kind of believes what Bob said. So I don't think you can discount Bob. Has he told the whole truth? Probably not. But I think there's seeds. There's definitely little nuggets of truth in there. There definitely is. And like literally 2 months ago, I would have said Bob's full of shit.
But the more you've been doing the documentary, the more.
Yeah,
How long have you been working this solid now? This is why you've not been really coming on the show that much, because you've been constantly doing the documentary.
I'm a month solid now. Although I'm
No,
gonna have
but
to
the
take
research leading up to that was like,
the
what,
reading it. Oh
3
no,
months?
since January, February.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the editing. I'm talking about
No,
the
no,
actual...
just our research and finding footage and watching stuff. Yeah, January, February.
So you've
because I
been
initially was
just
doing
over,
Greer.
so you've done about 7 months.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Greer's took a back burner.
Yeah, no, Greer literally took a back burner because I kind of went down a road and was interviewing people for the Greer documentary, and then that led me to Bob Lazar, and I thought I've got to do Bob first before I do Greer.
And then when we had Michael Horn on, that was what put the nail in the coffin, I think.
Yeah, that was the thing that just totally right. That's it. Greer's out the way because Michael just pushed my buttons, so he did.
Well, Lee got us blocked from Michael. He sent us an email the other day, and I wasn't replying, and Lee was replying, and yeah, it was funny.
I've been using chat. I have to confess, I've been using Chat GPT a lot for replying to emails that I wouldn't normally like reply to, and it's been coming up with some absolute corkers and sending stuff back. I love it. So I do, because otherwise my inbox just gets larger and larger and larger. So I'm literally just saying, right, Chat GPT, here's this email. What's the reply I give? A couple of tweaks here and there. Bang, that's that email sent. So yeah, I probably wouldn't have missed Mr. Horn either. So what was his email? You gonna let me know what the email was?
I will bring it up after the show. I can't remember what it was. I'll have to get the email up. I don't want to share Michael's email because it's just private stuff, isn't it? It's just it's a bit crass. But yeah, Sunday, people, Sunday's gonna be an actual interview with a new guest. So the show is gonna. I'll give you an idea of this guest's book, Satanic Warfare: Tactics of the Demonic. That is going to be this Sunday's show. I think it's a friend of somebody who Dave's got us. So
sounds like Dave's Wheelhouse.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And
I'll be watching because I've got proper work to do, shall we say, tomorrow, which I need to get edited up on the Sunday. So a little bit more of the old rugby stuff.
Are you still doing that, mate?
Yeah, that's going to be going on for the next 9-10 months.
Wow.
So it's just on. It was on a bit of a hiatus for a while there.
Good for you, lad.
So yeah, I'm back. to
Right,
work
people.
tomorrow.
If you want to become a channel member,
We would appreciate it.
I would be delighted. I'd love to see those little green little men. And consider becoming a patron. Or if not, get that Tom DeLong and Greer thumbs up. Because that really helps. Honestly, you have no idea how much that fucking helps the algorithm. And if we can push YouTube to push us out of this weird limbo thing where we keep going up to 11,000 dropping. It's odd. If not, leave us some feedback, a little comment after the video. Give us a comment and say, I liked this, didn't like this, but I like that, but I didn't like this. But as long as you end on I like that. Good night, God bless people. Mind the bugs don't bite. Check us out Sunday. Check us out on Rockfin. I hit the wrong thing. Rockfin. We did it. We kind of did a show already about what we spoke about tonight, but we spoke about it very honestly. Good night, God bless.
See you, folks. Good night.
And mind, those buggers don't bite.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Don't know if I mentioned the Rockfin show, but that's the Rockfin show, you know. Nipples hard.